Celsius is climbing the energy drinks leaderboard, but to catch Monster Energy, maybe they need to think like Monster Beverage Corporation and the Coca-Cola Company. So I'm scrolling through a slew kind of business news the other day, and I see a Bloomberg article headline seemingly taken from an interview with Celsius Holdings CEO John Feldley that states potential acquisition on the horizon. Now, since stodgy old Bloomberg likes to paywall everything, I didn't watch the interview, but I'm quite sure that was simply clickbait headline nonsense. Because, for one, I know John Feldley personally, and he typically wouldn't show his cards like that unless there was some game theory purpose a few moves ahead that it would unlock. And secondly, John Feldley has been, up to this point, quite consistent in his leadership rhetoric that the team is focused solely towards building Celsius into a multi billion dollar energy drink brand. That being said, I actually think a certain publicly traded beverage portfolio acquisition is something that has crossed John Feldley's mind. He just hasn't voiced it yet internally or maybe externally. But before I disclose that target and give my logic behind it, I want to remind you guys that Celsius Holdings has made an acquisition fairly recently that did include a CPG brand. During September of 2019, Celsius Holdings acquired its Nordic distributor called Funk Food Group. If you follow my content, you've heard me mention this many times before. And while that distribution company was attributed for solidifying Celsius as one of the best-selling fitness drinks in Sweden, maybe most American CPG professionals forget that Funk Food Group also owned a protein bar and drinks brand called Fast Sports Nutrition. In that mergers and acquisitions press release, John Feldley stated the transaction provides us with the ability to bring an entirely new yet complementary product offering to consumers under the innovative Fast brand. And about 18 months later, Celsius did in fact start testing Fast in the US market. In a video that year, I stated very recently they have two SKUs that launched in the US market on Amazon only. Those have done extremely well and have increased 50% quarter over quarter sequentially. This early data validates the opportunity for further US investment expansion for the Fast brand. I think the next probably 4 to 5 quarters, the Fast brand will set up with some strategic steps, such as having in-country manufacturing. Currently, they're manufacturing in Europe and sending those over. That's not something that is going to work long term. Them doing that will help with supply. They'll also help with some of the margins around the product. I also think because they're going to be producing in country, they're going to have a expanded flavor variance in terms of the market. I think then they would shift away from just an Amazon only approach and go into the fitness channel. And then finally, I think before the end of 2022, they should launch some type of test for the protein RTDs within the Fast portfolio of products. And despite the early successes, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze at the time to build up Fast in the American market. This was the time when Celsius was filling the DSD distribution hole that Bang Energy left open, and growth was getting steep and quick. So then, why am I suggesting the timing might be better now for a Celsius acquisition play? I mean, the year-over-year growth percentage is just as steep, plus the base revenue is substantially higher, and they're balancing that PepsiCo partnership. Well, I'm suggesting it because what got Celsius Holdings to right now might not be what gets them to where they want to go in the future. So while Celsius reaching 10% share is without a doubt an impressive feat in the US energy drinks market that has long been owned by Red Bull and Monster Energy, Celsius isn't content with that achievement. So back to that introductory statement of if Celsius Holdings wants to catch Monster Energy, maybe they need to think like Monster Beverage Corporation and the Coca-Cola Company. Let me decode that a bit for you. So if you aren't too familiar, Monster and Coke have a unique relationship where in June of 2015, they essentially traded brand assets. Coke invested $2.15 billion into Monster and in return got 1/6 of the company. And it's now closer to 1/5 because of the share buybacks over the last 8 years. But that's an oversimplification of this beverage powerhouse tie-up because contracts also included an exclusivity clause that states Coke can't acquire or develop any energy drink brands. Monster also wasn't allowed to develop or acquire non energy beverages, but that has since ended, thus, the Canarchy Craft Brewery Collective acquisition in January of 2022. So, what does this all have to do with Celsius Holdings? I think when the investment came from PepsiCo last year, everybody assumed it would just be a matter of time before Celsius Holdings was wholly owned by Big Blue. But what I'm proposing is that Celsius won't be eaten, at least entirely, by PepsiCo, and will instead be the one eating another publicly traded beverage company. So, just to finally rip the band aid off, I'm suggesting that Celsius Holdings acquires the Vita Coco Company. And here's a bit of my logic. Firstly, without seeing any Venn diagram like images showing the overlap of customers between the two companies, my intuition points me towards it being substantial. And as a result, that would create many different cost synergies, especially in the marketing and commerce functions. Secondly, is the simple fact that the Vita Coco Company's performance is strong. The core Vita Coco business is outpacing the strong categorical growth of 16.6% year to date in 2023. It's also already the coconut water market leader at over 50% share in America. Additionally, Vita Coco has broad channel growth in both velocities and total distribution points. Just to add like an adjacent point to this positive recent performance, the Vita Coco Company has extended its net profitability as an asset-light business model in 2023, with more margin growth expected in the coming year. All of this is important because Celsius cannot take on a fixer-upper right now. And I'm fully aware that any acquisition at this size would be a major distraction to Celsius. Plus, Vita Coco has that extra kind of curveball of global supply chain complexity of coconuts, but I'd rather take on that challenge than need to kind of completely overhaul a broken business. The next point I want to bring up is that at an enterprise value of just around $1.5 billion, Celsius Holdings would need to lean on the bank of PepsiCo to acquire the Vita Coco Company. Celsius Holdings has about half of that number in cash on its balance sheet, but it needs that like internally to just fuel growth. In that original Celsius and PepsiCo deal, the company received a net cash investment of $550 million for about an 8.5% ownership stake. With the stock price almost doubling in the last year, Celsius could get more funds from PepsiCo for less equity, assuming the original deal didn't have some like future investment price clauses in it. Celsius Holdings could and would likely also do part of that deal in equity for the Vita Coco Company. And I think PepsiCo would be supportive of this deal because they were rumored to be interested in acquiring the Vita Coco Company back in May of 2017. Finally, the Vita Coco Company does also include a trio of broader, better for you beverage brands that, on the surface at least, looks to be complementary with Celsius Holdings. While collectively only about $13 million in annual sales, the organic, all natural energy drink brand Runa, protein water brand Powerlift, and aluminum bottle canned water brand Ever and Ever could have potential within a more robust combined beverage company. Beyond those brands, Vita Coco also dabbles in an alcoholic extension that combines with Diageo-owned spirits brand Captain Morgan. But the star of the show is Vita Coco because it would position Celsius Holdings as a large player in the growing and evolving functional hydration space. While not necessarily a must-have right now, it does seem that these like energy plus brands are extending next into the hydration category to ride the disruptive prime effect wave. But just kind of want to end with some quick final thoughts. While on paper, this mergers and acquisitions prediction looks super interesting, I glossed over a ton of potential integration challenges, like how the Vita Coco Company is a certified B Corporation that would be exacerbated because of the relatively lean resources inside at Celsius Holdings. That being said, one thing has become quite evident within the functional beverage space of late. Anything is possible. But I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, consider hitting the like button to support me. Also, help me get to my new short-term goal of 3,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that basically 80% of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.